Piastri won everything on his way to Formula 1, back-to-back titles in F3, F2, Formula Renault, an achievement no other driver had ever pulled off. Now he's McLaren's secret weapon, quietly threatening to outshine Lando Norris. But if Oscar Piastri is this good, why was he overlooked for so long? And how good is he really? Today we'll find out.
Qualifying, you've got some work to do in the race.
Yeah, we'll try our best to see if we can get...
Esteban, happy birthday.
Unlike many F1 drivers, Piastri didn't come from a family with F1 heritage, but motorsport was definitely in his blood. His dad, Chris, an automotive engineer with his own car software company, didn't shy away from getting his hands dirty as his mechanic during the boys' first races. As Oscar's skills flourished, the Piastri family made a bold decision that would change everything, moving him to Europe, the heart of competitive karting. In 2015, Oscar joined Ricky Flynn Motorsport in the insanely competitive CIK karting series. The European karting scene was a different beast entirely compared to Australia, more aggressive, more competitive, and featuring the best young talents from around the world, like Jack Doohan and others. However, Piastri adapted quickly. By 2016, at just 15 years old, he finished 6th in the World Karting Championship in Bahrain. I know that doesn't sound like much, but what's particularly interesting about Piastri's karting career is that, unlike some prodigies who dominated from day one, Oscar's success came through determination and steady improvement. He wasn't instantly winning everything in sight. He was learning and gradually climbing to the top. By the end of 2016, the Australian teenager was ready to make the leap from karts to cars, and that's where things started to pick up. Piastri's ascent through the single-seater ranks was nothing short of meteoric. In just 5 years, he went from a raw Formula 4 rookie to one of the most celebrated junior drivers in motorsport history. His journey began when he joined the UAE Formula 4 Championship in early 2016. Driving for Dragon F4 in select rounds, the 15-year-old impressed everyone, scoring 2 podium finishes despite a limited schedule. That was cool, but what about Europe? Well, in 2017, Oscar joined the highly competitive British F4 Championship with the TRS Arden Junior team. Racing on wet British circuits, he clinched 6 race victories and 6 pole positions that year. The title fight went down to the wire. Piastri ultimately finished as British F4 vice champion, runner-up to Jamie Carolan, but well ahead of Logan Sargent, for example. It was an impressive rookie campaign, which had also earned a mentorship from fellow Australian racing legend Mark Webber. In 2018, Oscar reunited with Arden to contest the Euro Cup and also entered a handful of Formula Renault European Cup events. The learning curve was steep. Oscar managed 3 podium finishes in the Euro Cup with the best result of 2nd place at Hockenheim, ultimately ranking 8th overall. It was a character-building year, but armed with the lessons from 2018, Piastri switched to the solid RACE GP team for his sophomore Euro Cup campaign in 2019. The effect was immediate. Piastri emerged as the class of the field, taking his first victory at Silverstone and then promptly winning again the next day at the same track. As the season progressed, he kept racking up wins, 7 victories in total, more than any of his rivals. A key triumph came at Spa, after which Piastri became the first driver to reach 3 wins that season. His consistency was remarkable. In 19 races, he scored 11 podiums and 5 pole positions, amassing 320 points to clinch the 2019 Formula Renault Euro Cup Championship. He sealed the title in style at the final round in Yas Marina with another W, so nobody could ever doubt him. This victory was an absolute watershed moment. It earned him a place in the Renault Sport Academy by January 2020. Mark Webber's protege had delivered on his promise, and bigger stages awaited.
Hi, my name's Oscar Piastri. I'm from Australia and I'm racing for Prema in FIA F3.
Graduating to the FIA Formula 3 Championship in 2020, Piastri signed with Prema Racing, the powerhouse team that had won the F3 team's title the year before. The partnership paid dividends immediately. In his very first F3 race weekend at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, Piastri put his car 3rd on the grid and went on to win his debut race. He followed that up with 3 consecutive runner-up finishes in the early rounds and was clearly in the title hunt from day one. However, mid-season, things started going south. Piastri got a couple of DNFs and mechanical gremlins that tightened the championship battle. His Prima teammates Logan Sargent, Frederic Vesti, as well as the French hope Théo Pourchaire all emerged as threats. Going into the final round at Mugello, Piastri was effectively tied at the top with Sargent, with Pourchaire only a few points behind. In the feature race, Sargent was taken out in a first-lap collision, and Pourchaire charged up to third, suddenly threatening to steal the championship. Piastri, meanwhile, had a bad race, dropping from 7th to 10th place at one point. As the laps wound down, the calculations became nail-biting. If Pourchaire gained another position, he could snatch the title. Ultimately, Pourchaire finished third and Piastri 7th, just enough for Piastri to win the 2020 F3 championship by a mere 3-point margin. Obviously, this placed him firmly on the radar of Formula One teams. Renault rewarded him with a test in a 2018 F1 car, giving Oscar his first taste of the pinnacle of motorsport.
I think for especially at Alpine, developing the car and the sim, that's a really important aspect that you need to be good at.
With barely time to catch his breath, Piastri leapt into Formula 2 in 2021, the final step before Formula 1, once again with the Prema. If the previous year's F3 battle had been close, Piastri's F2 campaign would prove the opposite. Despite facing experienced contenders like Guan Yu Zhou and Robert Schwartzman, Piastri stamped his authority on the championship early and never let it go. Later in the season, Piastri pulled off an extraordinary run of 4 consecutive feature race victories in the closing rounds, sweeping the main races at Monza, Sochi, Jeddah, and Abu Dhabi. In doing so, he achieved 6 wins in total, more than any other driver that season. By the time the dust settled in Abu Dhabi, Piastri had secured the 2021 Formula 2 championship with 2 races to spare, having stood on the podium at every race weekend of the calendar. He joined a great club, becoming just the 6th driver in history to win the GP2 or F2 championship in his rookie season, alongside Rosberg, Hamilton, and Leclerc. Furthermore, he became the only driver ever to clinch the Formula Renault, Formula 3, and Formula 2 titles in successive seasons. Mark Webber, whose management had guided Piastri's path since Formula 4, now faced the task of finding his prodigy a seat in Formula 1, a challenge in itself as 2021's F1 grid had limited openings, and even Piastri's back-to-back-to-back championships didn't seem enough to lift him into an F1 seat.
I guess I'm just too fake for that. So sit down, listen, think for a minute.
And they're not the most, the prettiest of exercises, but they're very necessary to make sure our heads can hang on.
For 2022, the Renault F1 team that was rebranded as Alpine had no race seat available. They were committed to Ocon and Alonso for that year and ended up signing Piastri as their official F1 reserve driver, laying out a development program to keep him race ready. By logging thousands of miles in older Formula 1 cars and doing simulator work, Piastri ensured he'd be prepared the moment an opportunity arose. But behind the scenes, tensions were brewing regarding Piastri's future. Alpine made it clear they did not want to lose this talented youngster, but they also lacked a clear path for him. Midway through 2022, Alpine's CEO Laurent Rossi floated the idea of placing Piastri on a loan to Williams for 23 and 24. From Piastri's perspective, a potential 2-year detour in a backmarker team was far from ideal, especially given his championship ambitions. Mark Webber began exploring other options, quietly talking to teams that could offer Oscar a more competitive seat. However, as it usually happens, everything changed dramatically over the summer of 2022. First, 4-time champion Sebastian Vettel announced his retirement from F1.
I hereby announce my retirement from Formula One by the end of the 2022 season.
In a shock move, Alpine's star driver Fernando Alonso jumped ship to fill Vettel's Aston Martin seat, leaving Alpine with a surprise vacancy for 2023. Alpine's management immediately saw Piastri as the obvious heir to Alonso's spot. On August 2nd, 2022, they publicly announced Oscar Piastri as Alpine's race driver for 2023, seemingly the culmination of his junior career ascent. But just 2 hours after Alpine's press release, Piastri himself took to Twitter to say he will not be driving for Alpine next year and has not signed a contract. The entire announcement was done without his consent. It turned out later that Piastri had secretly signed a contract with McLaren on July 4th, weeks before Alonso's move, anticipating a race seat there in place of underperforming Daniel Ricciardo. Alpine was furious. Their team principal attacked Piastri's integrity as a human being, claiming the team expected more loyalty after investing in his junior career. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff even had to weigh in, warning about karma and suggesting that young drivers should be wary of burning bridges with manufacturers who support them.
You are watching a master at work.
But as the contract dispute escalated to Formula One's Contract Recognition Board, details emerged that painted Alpine in a far less favorable light. Multiple informed sources revealed that Alpine never had a firm contract with Piastri, only a vague term sheet, and that they kept delaying offering him a true F1 deal. Webber and Piastri had grown frustrated as Alpine couldn't commit and went to look for other options, which is absolutely fair. The last straw was when Alpine told Piastri he might have to drive for Williams, potentially until 2025, instead of being promoted to Alpine's own team. At that point, Webber sought out McLaren, who were eager to bring the young Aussie on board. In September 2022, the Contract Recognition Board made its decision. It ruled in favor of McLaren, stating that Piastri's McLaren contract and only that contract was valid for 2023 and 2024. Alpine had no contractual hold on him whatsoever. The outcome vindicated Piastri's stance. McLaren swiftly confirmed Piastri as Lando Norris' new teammate for 2023. The entire saga, dubbed the Fiasco, was one of the wildest contract dramas F1 had seen in years. But in the end, Oscar Piastri, at 21 years old, had secured his place on the 2023 Formula One grid, driving for the legendary McLaren team.
I think, at the moment with where we are, we need to capitalize on days like today, which we did.
Piastri entered his rookie F1 season with immense expectations and a fair bit of pressure. He was stepping into the seat vacated by Daniel Ricciardo alongside Lando Norris, a highly rated youngster who was embarking on his 5th F1 season. McLaren, however, struggled in preseason testing. Their MCL 60 car really lacked performance and reliability early on. The Bahrain Grand Prix debut did not go as planned. Piastri qualified 18th amid the McLaren's handling struggles, and in the race, he retired on lap 13 due to an electrical issue while running 12th. In Saudi Arabia, he gave a glimpse of his talent by making Q3 in qualifying, only to suffer a front wing damage in a first lap debacle with Pierre Gasly that dropped him out of the points. Finally, at round 3, his home Grand Prix in Australia, Piastri scored his first F1 points, finishing 8th in front of an excited Melbourne crowd. It was a solid drive from 16th, and finally something McLaren fans could cheer for. The car remained a midfield contender in the first half of 2023, and Piastri experienced the typical roller coaster of a rookie year. There were low moments, 19th in Miami after car troubles, and a few races just outside the points, but crucially, Piastri kept learning and improving each weekend. A major turning point came at the British Grand Prix in July. McLaren introduced a significant upgrade package, and Piastri immediately capitalized. He qualified an astonishing 3rd at Silverstone and finished the race 4th, narrowly missing a podium in front of McLaren's home fans. From Silverstone onward, McLaren was actually fast. At the Belgian Grand Prix, Oscar qualified on the front row for the sprint race, and even battled Max Verstappen for the lead in the early laps. He finished 2nd in that sprint, and that was his first podium of sorts in F1. Even though an opening corner collision in Sunday's Grand Prix put him out early, Piastri had made a statement. Give him a competitive car, and he can fight at the front. The highlight of Piastri's 2023 rookie season came in the late Japanese Grand Prix. He qualified on the front row and went on to finish 3rd, achieving his first official Formula One podium, the first rookie to stand on an F1 podium since Lance Stroll in 2017. The agenda was now not to end up like Lance Stroll.
No, I was busy driving the car.
But 2 weeks later in Qatar, Oscar took pole in the Saturday sprint race and won the sprint, holding off Verstappen in a tense duel to claim his first sprint victory. In the main Qatar Grand Prix, he followed that up with a 2nd place finish only behind Verstappen, capping an incredible weekend. Lance Stroll could never do that. And you know what else Stroll could never do? Get to 20,000 subscribers before the F1 summer break. So if you like the video so far, don't forget to subscribe. In the span of a month, Piastri had checked off a rookie's dream goals: a podium, a sprint win, and a legitimate challenge of the sport's dominant driver. As the season wound down, McLaren rewarded Piastri's excellent progress with a multi-year contract extension, announced even before the final races were done. The young Australian wrapped up 2023 ninth in the Drivers' Championship with 97 points and 2 podium finishes. Lando Norris scored about double that, 205 points, and finished 6th in the championship. But Piastri's deficit was understandable given the rough start to the year and his inexperience. In fact, by the latter part of the season, Piastri was often matching Norris's pace. Over the final 8 qualifying sessions, the rookie actually out-qualified Norris several times. At some point, this battle between teammates had to unfold, and in 2024, we would see exactly that.
I'm very proud of the whole team to accomplish our main goal this season.
The team provided Piastri and Norris with the McLaren MCL38 for 2024, a machine that would turn out to be a genuine frontrunner. The season began with solid results for Piastri: an 8th in Bahrain, then back-to-back 4th-place finishes in Saudi Arabia and Australia. McLaren's upgrades over the winter had clearly paid off, and both drivers were regularly in the upper midfield. By round 5 in Miami, McLaren were absolutely ready to challenge Red Bull. After Miami, Piastri notched a string of consistent finishes: 2nd in both the sprint and Grand Prix in Austria, a podium near miss 4th in Britain, and more points in Canada and Spain. But the true breakthrough came in the heat of Budapest. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, Piastri qualified on the front row alongside Norris. At lights out, he reacted brilliantly, outlaunching his teammate into turn 1 to seize the lead. As the 2 Papaya McLarens led the field, McLaren's pit wall faced a dilemma. In a controversial call, the team allowed Norris to undercut Piastri at the pit stop, which put Lando ahead. However, as the race neared its end, Norris's pace faded and Piastri closed back up. In the final laps, team orders were issued to swap positions back, a recognition that Oscar had been the quicker driver that day. We all know Norris is way too nice, but the team had to basically beg him to swap. Finally, Piastri retook the lead with 2 laps remaining and stormed home to claim his maiden Formula One Grand Prix victory in Hungary.
Mate, we did the stop sequence in this order for the good of the team. I'm fighting for championship. Okay, I'm trying to protect you, mate. I promise, I'm trying to protect you. And Lando, there are 5 laps to go. The way to win a championship is not by yourself, it's with the team. You're going to need Oscar, and you're going to need the team. So if there's a safety car now, it's going to make this very awkward. Please do it now. Yeah, you don't need to say anything.
Just a few weeks later, Piastri doubled his win tally. At the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku, he qualified 2nd and engaged in a race-long battle with Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. A late strategic error by McLaren briefly cost him the lead, but Piastri recovered and captured his 2nd win of 2024. Journals called it a coming-of-age drive for Piastri, showcasing his ability to manage pressure at the front and make decisive moves when it counted. There were still tense moments. In the Sao Paulo sprint, Piastri was leading when the team abruptly ordered him to let Norris take the sprint win, prioritizing Norris's higher position in the driver's standings. Oscar complied, finishing 2nd. Interestingly, in the very next event, the Qatar Sprint, Norris returned the favor and let Piastri through on the final lap to gift Oscar the sprint victory, ensuring the spoils were shared. These intra-team maneuvers did not go unnoticed by media, as McLaren walked a tightrope trying to keep both young stars happy. Ultimately, the 2024 season was a triumph for McLaren. The team clinched the World Constructors' Championship, their first since 1998, signaling a return to the top after decades. Lando Norris finished as Formula One Drivers' Championship runner-up, and Oscar Piastri took 4th with 292 points, 82 points behind Norris. 2025 has to be a potential championship campaign for McLaren's dynamic young duo, but with that comes a new challenge: managing the rivalry between Piastri and Norris, as both of them are focused on the sport's ultimate prize. Over the winter, the McLaren camp made no secret that they were targeting both championships. With a dominant car in hand and 2 star drivers, McLaren entered 2025 as title favorites, and the battle between Piastri and Norris for the Drivers' Championship was obvious. In a sign of their faith in Piastri, McLaren announced another contract extension just before the season opener, securing Oscar through at least 2028. And the opening rounds of 2025 did not disappoint. In the very first qualifying session of the year at the Australian GP, Norris pipped Piastri to pole by the smallest of margins. Come race day in horrible rain, Piastri attacked Norris hard for the lead in front of his home crowd, only to spin off in the damp, recovering to finish 9th. Norris won that day with a measured drive, but he commented that having Oscar filling his mirrors was a statement the fight was truly on. Piastri quickly made amends at the next round. In China, he clinched his first career pole position and converted it into a dominant win, leading a McLaren 1-2 finish with Norris trailing behind by like 10 seconds. Arriving at round 3 in Japan, Piastri, when asked if he feared Verstappen or Norris more as a title threat, diplomatically pointed out that Norris in the same car was likely his biggest obstacle. Didn't talk trash, didn't get on his teammates' nerves. A solid answer to a tricky question. But on track, Norris finished second at Suzuka, with Piastri third behind the resurgent Verstappen, who took the win. However, Oscar struck back with a pole and victory in Bahrain, cruising with a 15-second margin, and then won again a week later in Saudi Arabia after an intense wheel-to-wheel scrap, becoming the first Australian to lead the F1 World Championship since Mark Webber in 2010. And that actually changes the entire team dynamic at McLaren.
We've got two great drivers. We have great relationships, transparent, we're fair. And so I think we can manage through their desire to beat each other.
Having been with the team since 2019, Lando had established himself and was coming off a dominant head-to-head over Daniel Ricciardo. Piastri, to his credit, was keen to learn from Norris's experience and didn't get a big head when McLaren signed him. Throughout 2023, their relationship appeared cooperative and friendly. Norris openly praised Piastri for his quick adaptation, at one point even admitting that Oscar's handling of pressure as a rookie was solid. On track, while Norris generally had the upper hand, Piastri's late-season surge certainly caught Lando's attention. In qualifying, Norris edged Piastri 15-7 over the year, but notably, Piastri outqualified Norris 6 times in the last 11 races. But still, McLaren clearly prioritized Norris, even though they would never admit to that. In the first part of 2024, Norris often finished slightly ahead, including taking that win in Miami, while Piastri hit trouble. Nonetheless, Oscar's confidence blossomed as he started fighting at the sharp end. When Norris leapfrogged Piastri in the pits at the Hungarian Grand Prix, Piastri was understandably frustrated at losing a lead he earned at the start. After that, when Norris hesitated to give the place back, it could have become a team crisis. However, Norris did relinquish the win to Oscar later on, and both drivers handled the situation maturely in public. Lando even called the team's decision fair afterwards. That incident revealed something important. Norris's position in the team was slipping away.
Have you got any mates on the grid?
No friends, only enemies.
The McLarens are side by side, and Oscar Piastri is going all the way around with a bold and brilliant move.
I thought it was a good move. Piastri has zero interest in Lando Norris's World Championship.
With championships on the line, the Norris-Piastri relationship entered new territory. Both now harbor genuine ambitions of becoming world champion, and only one can achieve that each year. Off the track, McLaren's management worked to keep harmony between their two ambitious drivers. Zak Brown emphasized that Piastri and Norris were equal number ones in the team's eyes. Team principal Andrea Stella, known for his calm leadership, used what Piastri called people power to ensure internal competition didn't boil over. But we all remembered how McLaren had been scarred by the infamous Alonso versus Hamilton rivalry in 2007, and even earlier by Senna versus Prost scenarios where two top drivers in the same team clashed bitterly. Brown publicly stated he was confident history would not repeat itself with his current lineup. However, I'm just not very confident in that statement. It's easy to say that when the stakes are not that high and we're not even midway through the season. But F1 drivers are like sharks. Let them smell the title and they would lose their minds. But if it all comes down to the last race between Norris and Piastri, who will emerge victorious? In other words, how good is Oscar Piastri actually? The answer, based on all available evidence, is exceptional. Beyond the hype and media narratives, he possesses genuine, world-class talent, coupled with the temperament and work ethic to maximize it. While the ultimate judgment of his place in F1 history will depend on championships secured, his trajectory suggests a driver destined for greatness. In an era often defined by Max Verstappen's dominance, Piastri has emerged as perhaps the most compelling challenger to the established order. I'm sure the quiet Australian with the unflappable demeanor will take the championship. The only question is, will it happen this year? Red Bull doesn't really have any time left to get it together, and Norris keeps sabotaging himself, so it does seem like the best chance for Oscar to get to the top. Let me know who you think will win 2025 Drivers' Championship in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.